The message came on a Tuesday morning. It arrived through every radio, every television, every phone, and every computer on Earth at the exact same moment. The world stopped. People in Tokyo put down their coffee. Farmers in Brazil looked up from their fields. Children in schools across Europe fell silent as their teachers stared at screens with wide eyes. The message was simple: surrender or die. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of the Taejong, Earth's largest warship. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but those eyes had seen many battles. She had fought pirates near Mars. She had commanded the defense of the Jupiter stations. She had never lost a ship under her command. But now, looking at the massive fleet appearing on her sensors, she felt something she had not felt in 20 years. Fear. How many ships? She asked quietly. Lieutenant Woojin checked his screens 3 times before answering. His hands were shaking. 200 warships, Admiral. Each one is at least 10 times the size of the Taejong. Yuna nodded slowly. She had expected something like this. Humanity had known for decades that they were not alone in the universe. They had found old ruins on Mars. They had detected strange signals from distant stars. But they had never made contact. Until now. The hologram appeared in the center of the bridge without warning. It was tall, perhaps 3 meters, and made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body like blood through veins. When it spoke, its voice sounded like breaking glass. "I am the voice of the Galactic Concord," it said. "I speak for the 12 elder species. I speak for 1,000 conquered worlds. I speak for the law that has governed this galaxy for 10 million years." Yuna stepped forward. "I am Admiral Yuna of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Why have you come to our system?" The crystal being tilted its head. The movement was strange, almost mechanical. "We have come to deliver judgment. Your species has been observed for 200 of your years. You have been found guilty of numerous violations. Uncontrolled expansion, resource exploitation, primitive tribal conflicts, and most disturbing of all, psychological instability." Psychological instability? Yuna raised an eyebrow. "Your species displays combat behavior that our analysts cannot explain. During conflict simulations, your soldiers produce strange sounds. Their faces twist into unusual expressions. Our scientists have studied this behavior for decades. We have concluded that humanity suffers from a dangerous form of madness." Yuna understood suddenly. She almost smiled. "You mean laughter?" The crystal being's light flickered. "Yes, this laughter. It appears during moments of extreme danger. Moments when rational beings would feel only fear. Your species seems to find death amusing. This is deeply troubling to the Concord. On the other side of Earth, in the Great Hall of the United Nations, the same hologram delivered the same message to the world's leaders. President Park of Korea sat in the front row. Prime Minister Sujin of the Asian Alliance sat beside him. They listened as the alien explained humanity's crimes. "You have 1 galactic cycle to surrender all planetary sovereignty," the voice announced. "Your military forces will be disbanded. Your leaders will submit to Concord authority. Your species will be relocated to designated zones for rehabilitation. This is not negotiable. This is the law." The hall was silent. Some leaders looked ready to cry. Others looked ready to fight. Most just looked confused. President Park stood up slowly. He was an old man, nearly 80, but his voice was strong. "And if we refuse?" The crystal being's light turned cold, almost blue. "Then your species will be eliminated. We have destroyed worlds before. We will do so again. The Concord does not make threats. We make promises." The hologram vanished. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, from somewhere in the back of the hall, came a sound. It started quiet, almost like a cough. Then it grew louder. Someone was laughing. Prime Minister Sujin turned around. A young aide named Doyen was covering his mouth, his shoulders shaking. People stared at him in horror. Had he lost his mind? Doyen looked up, tears in his eyes from laughing. "I am sorry," he said. "I am truly sorry. But did that giant crystal just say they are scared of us because we laugh? That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard." The silence stretched. Then President Park made a sound. It was a small chuckle at first. Then it grew into a real laugh. Then Prime Minister Sujin started laughing too. Within minutes, the entire United Nations Hall was filled with the sound of human laughter. Across the world, people watched their leaders laugh in the face of extinction. And something strange happened. Instead of feeling more afraid, people felt less afraid. The fear was still there, of course. But now there was something else too. Defiance. Admiral Yuna received the official response from Earth. Command 1 hour later. She read it twice to make sure she understood correctly. Then she smiled. "Lieutenant Wujin," she said, "open a channel to the Concorde fleet. All frequencies. I want every ship to hear this. Channel open, Admiral." Yuna stood straight. She looked directly at the camera. Behind her, her entire bridge crew stood at attention, and every single one of them was smiling. "This is Admiral Yuna of Earth," she said. "We have received your ultimatum. We have discussed it carefully, and we have prepared our official response." She paused for effect. No, the word echoed across space. It reached every Concorde ship. It was translated into 100 alien languages. And everywhere it went, it caused confusion. The Concorde had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had destroyed species that fought back with terrible weapons. They had crushed rebellions led by beings of pure energy. But they had never, in 10 million years, received a response like this. Just one word. No. On the Concorde flagship, the Supreme Commander turned to his advisors. He was an ancient being, older than most stars, and he had seen much in his long life. But he had never seen anything like this. "They refuse?" he asked. "They refuse," his advisor confirmed. "And Commander?" They appeared to be laughing. The Supreme Commander watched the recording of Admiral Yuna. He watched her crew smiling behind her. He watched as the woman who should have been begging for mercy instead looked almost amused. "Prepare the pacification fleet," he ordered. "These creatures need to learn their place." Back on Earth, Doyu stood on the roof of the UN building, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 200 alien warships were preparing to destroy everything he had ever known. His planet. His people. His family. He should have been terrified. And part of him was. But another part of him, the part that had laughed in that hall, felt something else entirely. It felt alive. It felt ready. His phone buzzed. A message from his old military unit. They were calling up everyone. Every soldier, every pilot, every engineer. Earth was going to war. Do-hyun smiled. "Well," he said to the stars, "if you wanted to fight, you came to the right planet." Somewhere in orbit, Admiral Yuna was thinking the same thing. She looked at her crew, these brave men and women who had chosen to stand against the impossible. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also ready. "All hands," she announced over the ship's speakers. "Prepare for battle. And remember, if things get bad out there, do what humans do best. Laugh in their faces. Let them know that Earth does not surrender. Earth does not beg. Earth fights. And Earth laughs while doing it." The war for humanity's survival had begun. The Concorde fleet moved toward Earth like a wave of death. 200 ships, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a moon. The Supreme Commander watched from his throne as his fleet crossed the outer planets. Jupiter, then Saturn, then Mars. Soon, Earth would be nothing but dust and memory. Time to arrival? He asked. 6 hours, his navigator replied. The humans have positioned their ships near their moon. They appear to be preparing for battle. The Supreme Commander made a sound that might have been a laugh, though his species did not truly understand humor. Battle? With what? Our sensors show they have perhaps 50 ships, all smaller than our smallest cruiser. This will not be a battle. This will be a lesson. He was not wrong about the numbers. Admiral Yuna commanded exactly 47 ships. The largest was the Taejong, and it was the size of a Concorde shuttle. On paper, the fight was already over. Humanity had already lost. But the Supreme Commander had made a mistake. A terrible mistake. He had studied humanity for 200 years, but he had studied them from far away, like a scientist studying insects. He knew their population. He knew their technology. He knew their resources. But he did not know their history. He did not know about the wars humans had fought among themselves. The endless, brutal, creative wars that had shaped their species for thousands of years. He did not know that humans had invented new weapons in the middle of battles, new strategies in the heat of defeat, new ways to kill when all seemed lost. He did not know that humanity's greatest strength was not their ships or their guns. It was their ability to adapt, to improvise, to refuse to die. Lieutenant Jian stood before the War Council in the underground bunker beneath Seoul. She was young, only 28, but she had spent her entire adult life studying alien tactics. She had read every report, analyzed every signal, watched every piece of footage from Concorde conquests. And she had found something. Their ships are powerful, she said, pointing at the holographic display. But they are predictable. Look at this battle from 300 years ago. And this one from 500 years ago. And this one from 2,000 years ago. They use the exact same formation. The exact same tactics. Every single time. General Taisek leaned forward. He was a large man with a scar across his face from an accident on Mars. Why would they do that? Because it has always worked, Jian explained. They have not fought a real war in millions of years. They show up with overwhelming force. The enemy surrenders or dies, and they move on. They have forgotten how to adapt. They have forgotten how to think. Their strategy is a museum piece, General. And museum pieces can be broken. General Taisek smiled. It was not a nice smile. Tell me more. 2 hours later, Operation Laughing Tiger was approved. All across the solar system, hidden platforms began to power up. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, ever since they found those ruins on Mars. They knew something was out there. They knew it might be hostile. And they had hidden their true strength where no one would think to look. Captain Hyman commanded the strike ship Gwanggaeto. She was 35 years old, with short black hair and a reputation for doing impossible things. Her crew loved her because she never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. And right now, she was asking them to do something very dangerous. We are going to board that ship, she said, pointing at the Concorde cruiser on her screen. We are going to take it intact. And we are going to learn everything we can about their technology. Her first officer, a tall man named Junho, raised his hand. Captain, that ship is 10 times our size. It has shields we cannot penetrate. It has weapons we cannot match. How exactly are we supposed to board it? Hyman grinned. We are going to knock on the front door. The Gwanggaeto approached the Concorde cruiser slowly, broadcasting a signal of surrender. The alien ship lowered its shields to accept the surrender, exactly as Concord Protocol demanded. They had done this 1,000 times before. The small ship would dock, the crew would be taken prisoner, and that would be the end of it. But as soon as the shields dropped, the Guangzhou fired everything it had directly into the cruiser's engines. The alien ship shook. Alarms screamed. And before the Concorde crew could understand what was happening, 50 human soldiers in combat suits were cutting through their hull. The battle inside the ship lasted 11 minutes. The Concorde soldiers were bigger and stronger than humans, but they moved slowly, following protocols that were millions of years old. The humans moved fast, unpredictably, using tactics they had invented on the spot. They fought in pairs, covering each other, adapting to every surprise. And through it all, they laughed. Not because they were crazy, not because they were not afraid. They laughed because it was the human way of saying, "We are still here. We are still fighting. You have not beaten us yet." The sound echoed through the alien corridors, and it did something strange to the Concorde soldiers. It confused them. It scared them. They had never heard anything like it. Captain Hyman reached the bridge first. The alien commander stood there, surrounded by fallen soldiers, unable to understand what had happened. His ship had been taken. His crew had been defeated by creatures half his size, with weapons a fraction as powerful. "How?" he asked. Hyman lowered her gun. "Because you forgot something important. War is not about who is bigger or stronger. War is about who wants it more. And we want to live." She pressed a button on her communicator. "Admiral Yuna, this is Captain Hyman. We have captured the enemy vessel. Beginning download of all tactical data now." Across the solar system, the battle continued. Human ships darted between the massive Concorde vessels like insects around giants. They could not win direct combat, so they did not fight directly. They hit and ran. They attacked supply lines. They targeted engines and sensors and communication arrays. They fought dirty, because fighting clean would have meant dying clean. The Supreme Commander watched in growing confusion. His ships were not being destroyed in large numbers, but they were being slowed, damaged, harassed. His perfect formation was breaking apart as captains tried to swat the human ships buzzing around them. "Why do they not flee?" he demanded. "They cannot win. They must know they cannot win." His advisor checked the latest reports. "Commander, we have received a transmission from the humans. It appears to be entertainment." Entertainment? The transmission played on the main screen. It showed a human male standing on a stage, speaking into a device. Other humans sat in rows, making that strange sound, that laughter. The male was telling stories that made no sense to the Concorde. Stories about everyday life, about relationships, about the absurdity of existence. "This is what they send us?" the Supreme Commander asked. "In the middle of a battle?" "There is a message attached," the advisor said. It reads, "We thought you might need to learn how to laugh. Consider it a gift." On the bridge of the Taejong, Admiral Yuna watched the Concorde fleet finally reach Earth orbit. They had taken more damage in the last 6 hours than they had taken in the last 10,000 years. It was not enough. Humanity was still outnumbered, still outgunned, still facing certain defeat. But the Concorde had lost something more important than ships. They had lost certainty. For the first time in their long history, they were facing an enemy that did not behave as expected. An enemy that laughed at death, that found joy in impossible odds, that simply refused to accept defeat. General Taisik appeared on Yuna's screen. "Phase 1 is complete, Admiral. The hidden platforms are ready. Phase 2 begins on your command." Yuna looked at Earth through her window. Her home, her people, everything she had ever loved. The Concorde wanted to take it all away. They wanted humanity to kneel, to submit, to become just another conquered species in their empire. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a war when she was young. She thought about her father, who had built ships in the orbital yards until his hands bled. She thought about every human who had ever looked at the stars and wondered what was out there. "Begin phase 2, she said, "and make sure the enemy can hear us laughing." The second wave of human ships emerged from hiding places across the solar system. They were not enough to win. Not yet. But they were enough to keep fighting. And as long as humanity kept fighting, as long as they kept laughing, there was still hope. The Supreme Commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where did they come from? Our scans showed nothing. No one could answer him. The humans had done the impossible. They had surprised an empire that had not been surprised in 10 million years. And somewhere in the chaos of battle, Captain Hyman's voice came over an open channel, broadcasting to every ship in the system, human and alien alike. "Hey, Concord! Knock, knock!" The war was just getting started. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. A primitive species, barely capable of leaving their own solar system, was fighting the Concord. Not just fighting, but surviving. Not just surviving, but laughing. On 100 conquered worlds, beings of every shape and size gathered around communication devices to watch the broadcast from Earth. They had all heard of the Concord's power. They had all seen species surrender at the first sight of those massive ships. But they had never seen anything like this. Ensign Sunho was 22 years old. He had joined the Earth Defense Fleet because he wanted to see the stars. He had not expected to see them while his fighter ship was spinning out of control toward a Concorde dreadnought. His engines were dead. His weapons were gone. His communication system was damaged. By all reasonable measures, he was a dead man. The dreadnought's guns were tracking him, ready to turn his small ship into dust. He had perhaps 30 seconds left to live. Sunho tried the communications panel one more time. To his surprise, it flickered to life. He was broadcasting on an open channel, which meant everyone could hear him. The Concorde. Earth Command. Every ship in the battle. He thought about what he wanted his last words to be. Something brave, maybe. Something that would make his family proud. Instead, something else came out. "Hey," he said, looking at the massive dreadnought filling his window. "Why do Concorde ships never throw parties?" Silence. Then, from somewhere, a human voice crackled back. "Why? Because they are always so spaced out." The joke was terrible. Sunho knew it was terrible. But he heard laughter over the channel anyway. Human laughter, filling the vacuum of space in the middle of a battle for survival. The dreadnought's guns fired. But in that same moment, a rescue shuttle appeared from nowhere, grabbing Sunho's broken ship with a tractor beam and pulling him to safety. The shots missed by meters. Lieutenant Nari, the shuttle pilot, came over the radio. "Worst joke I have ever heard, Ensign. You owe me dinner when we get back to Earth." "Deal," Sunho said, his hands shaking with relief. "I know a great place. They serve food that is out of this world. I am going to crash this shuttle on purpose now." The clip of Sunho's terrible joke spread across the galaxy within hours. Somehow, a species facing extinction had found time to make jokes about their executioners. This confused the Concorde deeply, but it had a different effect on the conquered worlds. On a planet called Home of Waters, beings who had not resisted the Concorde in a million years gathered to watch the humans fight. They were aquatic creatures, shaped like flowing ribbons, and they had once been great warriors. The Concorde had broken them long ago, crushed their spirit, made them forget what it meant to be free. The elder of their people watched the human broadcasts in silence. He saw soldiers joking before battle. He saw pilots making funny faces at each other through their cockpit windows. He saw a species that had every reason to despair, choosing joy instead. "What is wrong with them?" a young one asked. "Do they not understand they are dying?" The elder thought for a long time. "They understand," he finally said. "They understand better than we do. They have chosen to be happy while they fight, because happiness is itself a form of fighting. Every laugh is a small victory. Every smile is a weapon. Against the Concorde? Against despair." Rear Admiral Minji commanded the defense of the Luna shipyards, humanity's most important construction facility. If the yards fell, Earth would lose the ability to build new ships. The war would be over. 3 Concorde battleships approached her position. She had 5 ships to stop them. The math was simple. She would lose. But Minji had never been good at accepting simple math. "Open a channel to the enemy ships," she ordered, "and connect our music library to the broadcast." A communications officer, a young man named Jinwoo, looked confused. "Music, Admiral?" "The loudest, most chaotic music we have. Old rock songs. Dance music. Anything with a strong beat. I want to hurt their ears. Or whatever they use for ears." The music blasted across space, hitting the Concorde ships like a physical force. It was not dangerous, of course. Sound in space needed a medium to travel, so Minji was broadcasting it directly into their communication systems. But the aliens had never experienced anything like it. "What is this noise?" the Concorde commander demanded. "It is interfering with our targeting systems." It was not really interfering with anything, but the commander believed it was, and that was enough. His ship slowed, trying to filter out the strange signals. And in that moment of confusion, Minji struck. Her 5 ships moved in patterns that should have been impossible. They wove between the enemy vessels, targeting weak points that GN's analysis had identified. They did not try to destroy the battleships. They just needed to delay them, to buy time for the shipyards to complete 2 more warships. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Minji had lost 2 ships. But the shipyards were safe, and 2 new vessels were ready to join the fight. "Admiral," Jinwoo said, "the enemy commander is requesting communication. He wants to know what that music was." Minji smiled. "Tell him it is called having a good time. Tell him he should try it sometime." Deep in the heart of the Concorde Empire, the High Council gathered in emergency session. These were the oldest beings in the galaxy, creatures who had existed before most stars were born. They had built an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds. They had crushed every threat, absorbed every challenge, ruled unopposed for longer than most species had existed. And now they were worried. "The humans have survived for 30 days, one elder said. "This was supposed to take hours." "They are adapting faster than predicted," another added. "Every tactic we use, they find a way to counter it. They are learning our weaknesses faster than we can exploit theirs." The voice of the Concorde, the crystal being who had delivered the ultimatum to Earth, stepped forward. "I have studied their broadcasts extensively. I believe I understand the problem. Explain. When we conquer a species, we break their spirit first. We show them that resistance is hopeless. We make them feel small and powerless. This has always worked because rational beings recognize when they are defeated. They give up. They submit. They accept their new reality. And the humans? The humans do not do this. When they feel small and powerless, they make jokes about it. When they face certain death, they find reasons to laugh. They have a word for this. They call it coping. It is a mechanism that allows them to process fear without being destroyed by it. The elders considered this. One of them, a being made of pure thought, spoke directly into everyone's minds. So their laughter is a form of psychological defense? More than that, the voice said. It is a weapon. Every time they laugh, they are telling each other and telling us that they are not broken, that they refuse to be broken. And as long as they believe that, they will keep fighting. Then we must find a way to stop their laughter. The voice was silent for a moment. I do not think that is possible. I have reviewed 10,000 years of human history. They have faced plagues, wars, disasters, and horrors of every kind. They have laughed through all of it. This behavior is not a choice. It is who they are. One elder asked the question that none of them wanted to consider. Then how do we defeat them? The voice had no answer. Back in Earth orbit, Admiral Yuna received a message from the resistance movements forming across the galaxy. Species who have been slaves for millions of years were rising up. They were small rebellions, easily crushed, but they were happening everywhere at once. They are watching us, her aide Yunji reported. The whole galaxy is watching, and they are starting to believe. Yuna looked at the stars, at the Concorde fleet still surrounding Earth, at the impossible odds they still faced. 30 days of war, and humanity was still standing. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was a start. She opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Admiral Yuna. I know you are tired. I know you are scared. I know some of you think we cannot win. But look at what we have done. We have shown the galaxy that the Concorde can be resisted. We have reminded species who forgot how to fight that fighting is possible. We have become a symbol of something the Concorde thought they had destroyed forever. She paused, then smiled. Hope. We have become hope. So keep fighting. Keep laughing. And never, ever let them see you stop smiling. Because as long as we smile, as long as we laugh, as long as we refuse to give up, we have already won the most important battle of all. Across the fleet, humans raised their voices in cheers. Some of them laughed. Some of them cried. Most did both at the same time. And across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered and began to remember what it felt like to believe in something again. 1 year, 365 days of war. Earth was battered, scarred, and bleeding, but Earth was still breathing. The Concorde had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a war that was slowly draining their resources and their confidence. Commander Jisoo had not always been a military officer. Before the war, she had been a comedian. She had performed in small clubs across Korea, making people laugh about the absurdity of everyday life. When the invasion came, she had joined the fight like everyone else. But she had discovered something surprising. The skills that made her good at comedy also made her good at war. Comedy is about timing, she explained to General Taisik. It is about understanding what people expect and then giving them something different. War is the same. The Concorde expects us to fight in certain ways. Every time we do something unexpected, we win a small victory. General Taisik looked at the map of Concorde space spread across the table. You want to take the fight to them. That is insane. Probably, Jisoo agreed. But insane is what we do best. The plan was simple in concept and terrifying in execution. A single stealth carrier, the Hansen, would jump behind enemy lines. It would not try to destroy anything. It would not attack military targets. Instead, it would do something far more dangerous. It would spread hope. Pilot Woojin guided the Hansen through hyperspace. He was an older man now, gray at the temples, but his hands were still steady on the controls. He had been flying ships since he was 16 years old. He had never flown one into enemy territory before. Engineer Nari monitored the ship's systems from her station. She was brilliant with machines, able to fix almost anything with almost nothing. The Hansen was old and battered, held together by determination and creative repairs. Nari loved it anyway. Communications Officer Yoonji prepared the broadcasts. She had spent months gathering footage from Earth. Soldiers joking before battle. Families eating dinner together. Children playing in parks that had been rebuilt after Concorde attacks. The everyday moments of human life that the galaxy had never seen. First jump successful, Woojin announced. We are in Concorde space. Jisoo stood at the center of the bridge, watching the stars wheel past the windows. Somewhere out there, 1,000 enslaved worlds waited. Species who had forgotten what freedom meant. Peoples who had surrendered their hope to the Concorde millions of years ago. Begin broadcasting, she ordered. The signals went out in every direction. They contained no military information, no tactical data, nothing that could be considered an act of war by traditional standards. They contained something much more powerful. They contained stories. A human grandmother talking about her garden, about the flowers she grew to remind herself that beautiful things still existed. A human child explaining why she wanted to be an astronaut when she grew up, even though there was a war happening in space. A human soldier describing the moment he realized he was not fighting for victory, but fighting so that others might have a chance to live. And through it all, laughter. Humans making jokes about their situation. Humans finding humor in the darkness. Humans proving over and over again that joy was not something that could be taken away by force. On the planet called Home of Waters, the aquatic beings watched the broadcasts in amazement. The elder who had first seen the human broadcasts gathered his people together. They are coming, he said. Not with weapons. With words. With stories. With proof that another way of living is possible. What should we do? A young one asked. The elder was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice trembled with something he had not felt in 1,000,000 years. We should remember who we used to be. Before the Concorde came. Before we forgot how to fight. We were warriors once. We can be warriors again. The first rebellion started on Home of Waters. It was small, just a few hundred beings refusing to work, refusing to obey, refusing to accept that their lives belonged to the Concorde. It was crushed within days, but it was not the only one. On a world of eternal darkness, creatures who lived in caves began to whisper to each other. On a planet of endless ice, beings who had been slaves for eons started to remember songs their ancestors had sung. On 17 different worlds, the spark of defiance began to burn. Commander Jisoo, Yoonji reported, we are receiving responses. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Species are reaching out, asking for more broadcasts, asking how they can help. Jisoo felt tears in her eyes. She had hoped this would work. She had believed it might work. But seeing it actually happen was something else entirely. Keep broadcasting, she said. And tell them that help is on the way. Tell them that they are not alone anymore. The Concorde responded with force, as they always did. Ships were sent to crush the rebellions. Examples were made. Entire populations were punished for the actions of a few. But for every rebellion they crushed, 2 more appeared. The Supreme Commander of the Concorde fleet received the reports with growing fury. This is impossible, he said. We have ruled these worlds for millions of years. Why are they rebelling now? His advisor studied the data carefully. The human broadcasts, Commander. They are showing the conquered peoples something they have never seen before. A species that resists with joy instead of anger. A species that fights without hatred. It is inspiring them. Inspiring? They are insects. Insects who have survived a year against our full military might. Insects who have turned a simple war into a galactic crisis. Commander, I must speak plainly. We are losing. The Supreme Commander wanted to argue. He wanted to insist that the Concorde could never lose, that their power was absolute, that these humans were nothing. But the numbers did not lie. 3 member species of the Concord had already withdrawn from the war, declaring that the campaign against Earth was not worth the cost. More were considering the same. What do you suggest? He asked finally. End the war. Offer the humans a compromise. Let them keep their planet in exchange for peace. The Concord does not compromise. The Concord does not admit defeat. Then the Concord will fall. Not today. Not tomorrow. But eventually. Because the humans have shown the galaxy something we spent 10 million years trying to destroy. They have shown them that resistance is possible. And that knowledge cannot be unlearned. Admiral Una received the message from the Hansen with a mixture of pride and worry. The mission had succeeded beyond all expectations. But now Jisoo and her crew were trapped behind enemy lines, surrounded by Concord forces that wanted them dead. Can we get them out? She asked. General Tyzik shook his head. Not without committing forces we cannot spare. The fleet is barely holding the line as it is. Una looked at the star map, at the tiny dot representing the Hansen. At the vast distances between that dot and Earth, Jisoo and her crew had volunteered for a mission that might kill them. They had known the risks. They had gone anyway. Send a message to the rebel fleets, Una said. Tell them that one of our ships needs help. Tell them that this is their chance to prove that they believe in what we are fighting for. Ships began to gather. Not human ships. Ships from the conquered worlds. Vessels that had been hidden for centuries, maintained in secret, waiting for a moment that most believed would never come. They were old and outdated, their weapons weak compared to Concord technology. But there were a lot of them. The combined rebel fleet jumped into the system where the Hansen was hiding. They faced a Concord battle group that outnumbered them 3-1. By all logic, they should have fled. By all reason, they should have surrendered. Instead, they opened a channel to the Concord ships and broadcast something that the galaxy had not heard in 10 million years. Laughter. It was not human laughter. It was the sound of a dozen different species, each with their own way of expressing joy, their own way of saying that they refused to be afraid. It was beautiful and strange and terrifying to the Concord forces who heard it. What is happening? The Concord commander demanded. Why are they making those sounds? No one could answer him. And in the confusion, the rebel fleet attacked. Commander Jisoo watched from the Hansen as ships from across the galaxy fought side by side with her crew. Beings who had never met before, who spoke different languages and breathed different atmospheres, working together against a common enemy. Woojin, she said, get us out of here. But slowly. I want to watch this. The pilot smiled. Yes, Commander. Slowly it is. The battle lasted for hours. When it was over, the rebel fleet had lost many ships. But the Concord forces had been driven back. The Hansen was safe. And a message had been sent to every corner of the galaxy. The slaves were fighting back. And they were learning to laugh while doing it. Admiral Una received the news with something she had not allowed herself to feel in a long time. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that soldiers cling to in the darkness, but the solid kind that comes from seeing the impossible become possible. Admiral, Yunji reported, the rebel fleets are requesting to join our command structure. They want to form a unified force. They want to fight together. Una thought about everything that had happened. The ultimatum. The laughter. The year of desperate fighting. The broadcast that had spread across the galaxy. All of it leading to this moment. Tell them yes, she said. Tell them that Earth welcomes them. Tell them that together, we are going to do something that the Concord never thought possible. What is that, Admiral? Una looked at the stars, at the vast and terrifying and beautiful universe that she had spent her whole life exploring. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her to never give up. She thought about her father, who had built ships with his bare hands. She thought about all the humans who had laughed in the face of death, who had refused to surrender, who had shown the galaxy what it meant to be free. "We are going to win,"